All right, Kevin, back with you for another episode of the $1 Million Relationships Podcast. And today I am here with Patty Lawrence. Patty, welcome. It is so awesome to have you today.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Kevin.
Yeah,
It's a pleasure.
I have really been looking forward to this because you and I we go back a little ways and we had to talk a little bit about like how we originally got connected because I was trying to remember and like you came prepared you like Kev I looked it up myself so I so I want to I want to start by giving a shout out actually to two people because it was kind of two people. It was Samantha Hartley and Nick Peterson. And I know that I man, it's amazing to think I started doing these live events all the way back in 2017, so 6 years ago. And you had come to one of the events that I had done with, at the time, I was partnering with Alex Neem and stuff, and you would come down to Dallas for that event because Samantha had found out about it through Nick Peterson. And Samantha couldn't actually make the event. She had some family stuff she had to tend to, but Nick was there, and you came to that event, and that was how you and I met. And
Precisely. Yep.
we have been great friends ever since. We just like totally hit it off. And here we are today. And like, you know what a testament to the power of relationships. And especially in that instance where, Samantha had told you, yeah, I'm gonna fly to Dallas, I'm gonna go to this event and you should come with me. And you're like, yeah, okay. And then come to find out, well, Samantha wasn't gonna make it, but you came anyways because you placed such a high value on her recommendation and stuff. And that is just such an amazing testament to the power of relationships. And so, Patty, what I'd like to do is just kind of start off by turning it over to you so we can set a little bit of context, let people know who you are. So we start with like talking about like who you serve, what you do, what inspires you most about the work you do. We'll just kind of start there and you share whatever you feel led to share in regard to that.
Well, great. Thank you very much. So
Yeah.
I'm Patty Lawrence, and I am the founder and a consulting CFO at Turbo Execs. So Turbo Execs provides outsourced accounting and CFO services remotely to small and mid-sized companies in the $2 to $20 million revenue level. And usually those companies are service-based companies, online businesses, and of course, nonprofits. So we help them to we reveal the story behind the numbers by giving them full transparency reporting that enlightens them and allows the owners anyway, and leaders of the company to make data-driven decisions that increase the value that is the value to not only their shareholders and stakeholders, but also to themselves, if they're the business owners, their communities, because we also want to impact their communities, their employees, as well as their clients and vendors. So we don't want to miss out on anybody because those ripples touch everyone.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Patty, how did you get in to doing this kind of work?
I love that question. So way back in the day, I worked for 20 years in the corporate world in accounting, rising up from staff accountant all the way to division CFO. I was the CFO of a $250 million business unit that was part of a $2.3 billion company.
Okay.
So I relocated 3 different times with corporate promotions and whatnot, and kind of rising through the ranks and really understanding what it takes to, run business and be a business partner to somebody who's running a business. So not only just doing the accounting, but functioning as that leader's right hand. So how do you serve, right? It's a service-based position. You're
Yeah.
leading, but you're also serving, right?
Yes.
So
Yeah.
let's call it servant leader, right?
Yeah.
You're serving and leading at the same time because you've got a group of people. You're also setting the example for a lot of different people, and you're on this cross-functional team leading a business. So you've got engineering, you've got manufacturing, you've got sales, you've got finance and accounting, you've got everybody all together, pulling, rowing the boat and pushing it forward in the same direction,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So nobody's oar can be like going the wrong way. Everybody's
Sure.
got to be rowing together
Yeah.
to go, forward faster.
Yeah.
So that's and then at the I'd like to say the end of my corporate career came abruptly with a mass layoff at the company that I was at, my last company. So I like to say my company divorced me. Um, and I was mad for about 24 hours. And then I said, there's other stuff out there, isn't there? So should I get back on the horse, the corporate horse, or should I do something different? In
Mhm.
the end, I decided after talking to a few people, do something different. So I started doing gig jobs. This was back in 2006.
Okay.
Scared to death, didn't know anything. I'm a financial person. I know finance and accounting.
Yeah.
What do I know about selling? Oh my gosh. How am I gonna put food on the table? I had little kids back then. I really wasn't sure what I was going to do, but talking with a few people, on the sidelines at soccer practice, right?
Okay.
Some of the other parents, they're like, oh my gosh, Patty, people need your skills. Like, really? Yeah, I know somebody. Let me make an introduction. And I put out the word. I called, former coworkers and colleagues and, reached out to them. And one said, hey, I've got budget money. I've got a project. I need somebody to take this. It was at a former employer. And the former colleague says, let me make a couple phone calls. I'll get right back to you. And the next day I had that gig and I had another gig. And pretty soon it was like, okay, this has got some legs. I can do this. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was my first foray back in 2006 into the entrepreneurial world. Now my dad was an entrepreneur because he was a well driller, water well driller. So he had his own business. And yeah, I worked in his office over the summer, when I had summer break. I'd come back from college and, work in the office
Mhm.
and try to make heads or tails of, his papers everywhere. Everything was written at that point in time because that was in the 80s.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, there were no
Uh-huh.
computers. There were no computers back then.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so to try to make sense of, his office and put some workflows in there and procedures and, make some phone calls and, hey, you owe my dad, blah, 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 whatever. You owe the well drilling business, the well drilling company, some money. So when can we expect the check type of thing?
Mhm.
So yeah, that was my first foray into business. And yeah, skip ahead a few years in 2006, and I was on my own and putting my own entrepreneurial hat. I want to say I was an intrapreneur
Uh-huh.
in the corporate world. I don't know if that's a real word or not, but it's a inside entrepreneur because I was always thinking about how can we do it better?
Yeah.
How can
Yeah.
we do this, whatever we're doing, whatever our tasks are, and however we serve people, how can we do it better? How can we do it faster? How can we be more impactful with the information and the data that we're presenting to the people who we're helping to lead the business?
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting because with what you shared, you were one of your initial concerns was like, I don't know anything about sales or marketing, and how am I even going to sell myself? And what you discovered was, well, it wasn't really about selling particularly. It was just about finding just through having conversations, you found out that like people had problems. They're like, oh, I can help with that, and
Exactly. Yeah. Somebody I talked to early in that that transition period wanted to reframe that. and she said, Patty, it's telling, not selling.
Yeah.
So telling meaning it's cute because to turn a phrase, right? It rhymes, so it's easy to remember. And it's not preachy telling, but it's telling meaning telling a story. It's telling your story, and to your point, it's conversations. It's really, but it doesn't rhyme. Conversations, not selling. Yeah, that doesn't rhyme. So that part was really cute, and I really connected with that because I could tell that that was something that I could do. I could tell stories, whereas I didn't feel comfortable, and I had a belief in my head. There's no way I can sell. What do you mean? Selling? I'm a financial person. I'm an accounting person. What do we know about selling? I used to work with salespeople in the corporate world, and I used to like kick their butts to be compliant with stuff. It's like, hey, where's your expense report? Hey, where's your this? Hey, where's your what do you call it? The sales forecast. Hey, where's your sales forecast? Where's your numbers? I'm always chasing down somebody with respect to numbers in the sales department. They can't get their stuff together to get me my stuff so that I can get something to somebody who's going to make decisions based on those sales forecast numbers. So, and the only people who knew those numbers were actually the sales guys, because they were so close to their customers.
Yeah.
And being close to their customers, they knew what the demand was. They knew what the order patterns were going to be. They knew what they kind of had to anticipate, but sometimes they just didn't follow through. Darn it.
Yeah. 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 Wow. That is, yeah. And it's finding these problems that are what we call that are in alignment with who we are and how we can serve people, and for the right people, the right companies, those problems that we can solve, it's extremely valuable for them to be able to solve them. It puts more cash in their bank account. It uncovers, I mean, one of the things I used to, I love referring to you as the money finder, because in essence, that's kind of what you do. You find money that's
Yes.
there already, but yet they're not capitalizing on that, and
Yeah.
and when you have a skill set that allows you to do that, you become very valuable to people, And so,
Thank you for recognizing that. Yeah. It is a talent, and a lot of it's hidden in the numbers, right?
yeah,
We
yeah,
like to say we reveal the story behind the numbers, because your numbers in your business have a story. They contain the story of what happened.
yeah,
What happened during that month? What happened during that time period? What happened during the year, the quarter? It doesn't matter.
yeah,
Whatever it is, there's a story there.
yeah,
And because they relate to one another, right, in looking at a full set of financials, I can kind of, I can kind of take a guess at what happened during that particular, in generalization. I don't have to know specifically what happens in your business, but I can put together, those relationships. Of course, it's number relationships,
yeah,
right? Because they work together and they show up in certain patterns in certain ways, and they flow differently into your financials. So I like to say that, yeah, I can find money. I can identify leaky buckets, right? And I can look at your balance sheet and look at where some of the money might be hiding.
yeah,
So yeah, it's a well-trained eye over a long time, a
yeah,
few decades.
yeah, yeah,
You can still come on one hand though. That's good. But yeah, that's where the experience really, really does pay off, right? Somebody coming off the street doesn't have that, that ability.
yeah,
So, and the ability to have the conversation,
yeah,
right? To relate. It's relatability. It's how you relate to owners, and how you can not only help them, but understand where they're coming from.
yeah,
Because you and I both know business owners and leaders, there's a thin veil between their personal finances and their business finances, right? Because one feeds the other and it feeds more people. That's, in a real sense, it really does, but it also, feeds other people, meaning it feeds the community, it feeds your vendors, it feeds your clients, your clients and your employees, right?
Yeah.
Your employees and contractors. It literally feeds people. So you really have to understand what they place value on,
Yeah.
because it's not always the business and going into their pocket. Sometimes it's beyond that. And you probably know that as well, talking
Sure.
to so many of the people that you've talked to on this podcast alone,
Yeah.
right? You've
Yeah.
had those conversations, and so many people are thinking way beyond the here and now.
Yeah.
They want to impact far beyond just their business or their one company,
Yeah.
right? They
Yeah.
want that ripple effect.
That's right.
And that's important to know. In us helping our clients, it's important to know, because directionally, that's how we get a feel for, oh, I see. Directionally, that's where you want to go. Okay. And to know where their GPS is pointing
Mhm.
really helps us to help them stay on that track,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And maximize, maximize top line, but also maximize bottom line. I like to joke, tax people are out there for a purpose. My purpose is to help owners make as much money as humanly possible,
Yeah.
as much money as they can.
Yeah.
That's my goal. My bottom line goal: make as much as you can. And then we work with your your tax professional on tax maneuvers. You guys do your tax maneuvers, that's fine. But I want you to make as much money as you can with your machine, right? Your business, your company. That's the biggest reward that we can have.
Yeah.
The other big reward that we can have is when they sell, right? When they
Mhm.
exit and they get a big payday. I love to see that. I hate that the relationship has to end, but
Mhm.
I love to see that big payday for them, because another one, they can make another big impact somewhere,
Sure.
somehow, and maybe pursue something else,
Yeah.
right? Pursue
Yeah.
another dream.
Yeah. Yeah. And I imagine you see the same exact thing, Patty, that I see is that pretty much, I mean, almost every single entrepreneur I've ever interviewed for this podcast, or the entrepreneurs that I serve personally, they are all, inspired by it's either purpose, impact, or legacy, one or all three of those things. It's not just simply making more money, but although making more money, creating more revenue is a direct byproduct of them doing what they do, making a bigger impact in the world through their business, through their philanthropic endeavors. And so, yeah, yeah, that is really powerful stuff. And like, man, I really appreciate you sharing all that, because now we kind of have an idea of your background and how you got to where you are, and just what really inspires you to do the work that you do in this world and make the kind of impact that you're making. And so now is like a perfect time to make this transition. I'm gonna reiterate the question for the benefit of the listeners. So, Patty, have you ever been introduced to a person or persons who have completely changed the course of your life or your business, so much so that much of what you have today would not be possible if not for this person or persons? And Patty, I'm just like really excited to hear your unique story around this topic of relationships.
That's a great question. So the person that comes to mind immediately is and I'll tell you why first before I give her name.
Okay.
But she early on with my career, and I kind of, my career as an entrepreneur,
Uh-huh.
I noticed that I wasn't doing so, or comfortable. Maybe I'll use the word comfortable. I wasn't really comfortable with my selling skills, my ability to do my marketing, or my ability to have sales conversations.
Mhm.
And I needed help. So I went looking and came upon, I was introduced, and I can't even remember how I got introduced, but I was introduced to a lady named Samantha Hartley.
Okay.
And at the time, she was running some online training programs, a course, kind of a done with you course that actually it was, I think the first course was a learn it yourself, right? And then I did that, and I was like, wow, this is good stuff. And once a week, we would have an in-person call with her. That was back in 2014.
Okay.
I think that was before Zoom, but we actually had a phone call,
Uh-huh.
conference
I
call,
remember those.
conference call. Yeah, you remember those, right? We hopped on a call, and we would, take turns asking questions and getting our answers from the expert. And I was like, man, I'm really resonating with this Samantha lady. I need more. I need more. And so I took another course, and it was a little bit more next level, right? The 200 series versus the 100 series course
Uh-huh.
in college.
Uh-huh.
Like, okay, this is good. And at the time, I had two business partners, and I really wanted to introduce them because we were going through and trying to figure out how to do marketing. And I'm like, man, we need to meet this woman with Samantha Hartley. And so we ended up hiring her, and her background, I vibed with her right away because we're both, former corporate people. So I don't want to call them corporate cast off, because I think she left. I got cast off, but but we had that in common. So we had this big company, mentality. And back in, the 80s and 90s, there was a thing going. Which we both went through, like, being in a male dominated world,
Mhm.
especially in finance. There were so many times I was the only female in the room. And I'm not there to get your coffee. I'm not there to take notes for the meeting. I'm there as a participant, and, I'm a peer. So get that through your head right now. But Samantha and I, we would tell war stories all the time because we both had them, right?
Yeah.
So we
Yeah.
bonded immediately. And she was responsible for, you know, crafting um our marketing messages, helping us understand what's important in a marketing message, and also working with me directly on selling conversations, right? How do you have these conversations? You know, she's the one I crafted. There were three principles that kind of manifested to me and said, there it is. This is how you need to do it, Patty. These are the three things you need to be able to do it and move forward. The
Mhm.
first one is lean in. And when I say lean in, it's get uncomfortable,
Mhm.
right? Get uncomfortable with it, because not everything is going to be in your wheelhouse, right?
Yep.
So
Yep.
get uncomfortable with it. So lean in. The second one is trust the process. Trust the process. Samantha has a process, right? And we can insert anybody's name in there.
Yep.
There's
Yep.
all kinds of processes
Yeah.
out there, but this one was specific to having these conversations, right? Trust the process. There was a flow for this conversation that just made sense.
Yeah.
The third thing is be authentic, be yourself. nobody else can be you. Only you can be you.
Mhm.
You can't just take it and script it and read from a script or try to mimic somebody else, right? Somebody else's process or somebody else, just reading through something. It doesn't fit and it's fake and people can see right through it, right? They feel that, right? They feel that. And I was like, those are the three things I need to focus on to be successful in what I found is not only learning this whole marketing thing, right? And being better at it for me, because she and I still work together, by the way. It's been 10 years. There'll be
Yeah.
10 years in
Yeah.
January that we've been working together.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that's another big testament to relationships.
Absolutely.
Relationships are lasting,
Yeah.
right? We learn from them. We don't take from them. We exchange,
Yeah.
right? We give and we receive. We give and we receive.
Yep.
And I hope if you ever talk to her that Samantha says, yeah, I've received some nuggets of wisdom from Patty. And I think she calls them Pattyisms every once in a while. But those are the things that have coalesced for me over time, because those three principles that I just talked about, I've been able to take those and apply them elsewhere. So that's something that, when that coalesces and appears right in front of you, you're like, wow, okay, that's powerful. And now that's a tool that I can use elsewhere to
Yeah.
get same results, to be successful in other areas, right? And I can use those and teach those, because
Yeah.
I feel like 50% of what I do is teaching anyway. I teach my clients. I teach them how to be better at what they do because they understand numbers, right? So maybe they were scared of numbers before. Maybe they just didn't get it, or they're like, leave that to somebody else. Well, what I want to do is invite them to give it a try, right? Invite that in and go, okay, you know what? That's not so hard, right? It's a series of questions. It's leaning in, right? It's that getting
Yep.
uncomfortable again, right? Here
Yep.
we go again. Here we go, right back into that three-step process,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's the same thing, right? Then there's a process, trust the process.
Yeah.
And then be yourself. You don't have to try to be anybody else. You don't
Nope.
have to try to
Nope.
be an
Nope.
expert. Learn at your own pace. But you know what? You've just leveled up.
Yeah.
And that, my friend, is what I love to do for all of the people that are in my orbit, is help level them up, whether they're, a client, whether they're on my team, whether they're, just in the community. I am there to help up level people in whatever space they're trying to be their best in.
Yeah. 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 Man, I really love that. And one of the things you pointed out with you and Samantha is what she was teaching and what she taught you specifically was just so already in alignment with just who you were and the way that you wanted to show up for the people in your life. And so there was just
Absolutely.
complete alignment there between you and Samantha. And obviously it's still there 10 years later, And so, and,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
I just and it changed because you're right. When we're starting something new, we are focused on like, okay, how am I going to make this thing work? How am I going to get clients so that I can create cash flow, so that this thing has validity, and because we need that cash flow to support our business. But we get to a point where I guarantee you, Patty, the last thing that is inspiring you now is just the thought of just making more money, creating more revenue. You are far more,
Zero,
yeah,
zero,
yeah,
zero. I have
yeah.
zero interest in that.
That's right. That's right. It is. You are inspired by the clients that you serve, by the impact that they're making in this world, and your role in helping them make a much bigger impact. And
Absolutely.
uh,
It's that it's that I call it the it's not trickle down because that sounds condescending. It's the ripple effect,
Yeah.
right? The ripples go out, right?
Yes.
They go out from the center. So if you can make just one little impact for one person, they're going to make an impact to another person somewhere else in their lives, and it keeps cascading outward.
That's
So
right. That's
that's what drives me, and that's my why,
yeah.
is to really upgrade all of those around me,
Yeah.
especially women.
Yeah. 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 Wow. Well, Patty, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to have this conversation. For anybody who's listening to this, going, man, Kevin, I really like Patty. I appreciate what she has shared. I just love the way she shows up. How can they find out more information about you? Any website, any tools, or what have you?
Yeah, I love that. So great question. So our website is turboexecs.com. So it's TURBOEXECS, like executives shortened,
Okay.
.com, turboexecs.com. They can also connect with me on LinkedIn, because that's
Okay.
where I put a lot of my uh, a lot of my ideas.
Okay.
And yeah, that's where I am on social media, pretty much it. um
Okay.
thanks to Samantha and her team. They helped me with that. So yeah,
Awesome.
that's the
Awesome.
platform. Yeah, definitely connect with me there,
Okay.
and there's a lot of good information there. I call it Pattyisms too, but good financial management practices
Okay.
for operations. No tax, no audit. It's purely running your company, and
Yeah.
it's the right way.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, once again, Patty, I just really appreciate you. I want to thank you for taking the time to have this conversation today. And, it just, this is such uh, another great testament to the power of relationships. And any last thing you feel led to share before we call it a wrap?
I would say, I again, I am so thankful to you, Kevin. We go back to you know me, I did my homework. So we go back to 2018.
Yeah.
So that's how
Oh,
far back we go.
yeah.
And that was that first meeting in Dallas. So
Yes.
yeah, that was an up leveling.
Yeah.
So that was another reason to thank Samantha, is for that introduction, that invitation to attend that meeting and meet all of those amazing people, those amazing humans that were in the room that particular day, even though Samantha wasn't able to make it. That was the start, not only of my the up leveling of my entrepreneurial journey
Mhm.
with contacts like that, so including yourself. So
Yeah.
thank you so very much for that opportunity.
Absolutely. You're so welcome. You're so welcome. Well, thanks again. And I am really excited to share this interview, Patty. So, yeah, thanks so much.
Honored. Thank you.